Set piece again. Set piece again. Set piece again. Ola, ola. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is a set piece special. Arsenal 2, Manchester United 0, and they're quite literally crying. I have seen some Manchester United fan cams for the ages this morning. I got in about 1 a.m. last night off the back of the game and straight to bed. So I didn't get to, sift through the social media pearls of enjoyment. And absolutely brilliant to watch Manchester United fans just crying. Petitions need to be started, apparently. Corners need to be taken off of an ability to score goals from. We are rattling the cages of every single footballing fan. Even some Arsenal fans are crying about how hilarious we are from set piece. It's great. It's wonderful. And it's meant that Arsenal are now just 7 points off the top as well after Liverpool dropped points. We're going to talk about all of that and more in today's show. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing your thoughts as well in part two. We'll come to the chat box for your comments then. But good morning to those joining us live. James, we've got Black Sean, we've got Paul, Rich, Arasilki, we've got Pikahu, we've got Barry, we've got Black Sean and Temi, we've got Mubarak, we've got Damien, we've got Grantley Poos. Good morning to you all. Thank you. Please do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Please indeed do. And we're approaching our target of 60,704 subs for the year, which is, of course, the capacity of the Emirates Stadium. We're just under 110 now away from that target. So if you are new, please do join us. I had someone send me a message the other day saying that YouTube had unsubscribed them, and they've now resubscribed. So thank you to all the people that continue to check that and continue to be welcomed back warmly for some reason while YouTube has tried to kick you out. Anyway, let's go to today's slides, shall we? 3 points, but the title race is dead and done, isn't it? That's what we were told. People were done. Season's over is what we were told. And I told those people, I don't want your energy. I don't want you here. Take it with you. Go into hibernation till next season. We don't want your energy, because at no point to sit there in November, the time was, to say the season is done, over, despite Arsenal being in a quarterfinal of a cup competition, despite now being on their way and currently sitting in the top 8 of the Champions League phase. And of course, with a favourable run of fixtures to come, with Liverpool, of course, facing challenges of their own, it was never dead. So can we just get on board, support this team, and enjoy the ride? Because that's what football is. It's a roller coaster. You got to take the rough with the smooth. But the smooth feels pretty darn good, does it not? 3 points, and off the back of 2 goals against a Manchester United side who, of course, came to an Arsenal without some very big key players. In fact, only one of Arsenal's regular back 4 from last season was fit for this game. No Ben White, no Gabriel, and of course, even though we did use a different amount of left backs last season, Calafiori, who's come in to be our new left back, also not there. Kiwior, Zinchenko starting as our left-sided centre half and left back, the players who finished the game against West Ham. Saka, Martinelli, Havertz as the front 3, and Rice, Partey returning from injury, and Ødegaard back as well to form the 11 that would go on to get the decision done. And it shows you again, like we talk about the depth, we talk about concerns, we talk about specific players, but when we have been down, when we have been put into positions where we've had to use players that haven't had too many minutes, whether it's Zinchenko, whether it's now Kiwior, whether it's Jorginho, whether it's Waneri coming off the bench having to deliver, whether it's Trossard having to play and also deliver too, whether it's Timber coming in to that right back slot for Ben White. These players are stepping up. these players are doing the business and the squad is returning. And hopefully when more players like Gabriel and Calafiori, and in the future, of course, Ben White and Tommy Asu as well, we keep fingers crossed that they will be back. And maybe even with some signings, at least one, hopefully maybe more. But you never can take those windows for granted in January. Who knows what this team is going to be capable of into the second half of the season. But the first goal and Arsenal's 100th goal for 2024, hitting the back of the net, Jurrien Timber, stepping into the absence of Gabriel. I spoke to Timber after the game, interview of him out at midday over on Football.London. But Timber stepping up into the voids that was left from those set pieces by Gabriel. Fantastic glanced header past Andre Nana, and Manchester United could do very little to stop it. And it did feel like for much of it that every time that Arsenal had a corner, that even without Gabriel, the chance to score was always there. And certainly Jurrien Timber stepping up and heading the ball into the back of net. Love the celebration. There's just pure enjoyment. There's just such enjoyment about how they're playing. And people talk about Arsenal being reliant upon set piece. And of course, yesterday, the 2 goals did come from corners. But the 15 goals that have been scored in the last 4 games, the predominance of those has, of course, come from open play. And Arsenal was still threatening from open play. They were creating chances. And those corners, those set pieces, come as a result of what is happening in open play. That they are generating opportunities and chances that need to be forced out, that need to be forced into those positions. But Saka and Gabriel Martinelli know what they're doing. You can drive at the opposition player. You can try a cross. You can try a shot that might take a deflection, because the potential reward from the resulting set piece is so great right now that why wouldn't you? It's given Arsenal such a freedom, I think, in terms of kind of their attacking play at times, that that's not really being focused on. And of course, as the second half rolled onwards, it took another set piece for William Saliba to, off his backside, deflect the ball from Thomas Partey's header into the back of the net again. 2 corners from 2 different sides. Saka and Rice delivering on the day. Some fantastic crosses, of course, for Arsenal's defenders to get on it. I mean, if you haven't got Arsenal defenders in your fantasy football team at the moment, you have to question what on earth you think you need, or what on earth you think, or rather what you think needs to be in those fantasy teams, because it should be obvious. If you haven't got Declan Rice or Bukayo Saka as well, with the level of assist that they're going to be getting this season from the crosses they're putting in the box as well. But yeah, Saliba celebrating his goal like he'd scored a 30-yard screamer, which we know he can do for that goal against Bournemouth a couple of seasons ago. But yeah, just an absolute frustration for fans. I don't know if you've seen I've tweeted it from my TGT account on Twitter. Just the Man United fan he acts as if like he's playing a game of FIFA, and he's been like fighting all game and he deserves the win, which Man United certainly didn't deserve anything from this game. And it's just like, it's anti-football. What Arsenal are doing is anti-football. There's another Man United fan saying that they need to start petitions to stop what Arsenal are doing for corners. Everyone gets corners. Everyone has the opportunity to score and defend corners. We've conceded from corners this season. The Bournemouth game, of course, conceding from a corner. It's not as if we aren't putting what we're doing on show every single week. It's not like you haven't got the opportunity to watch what Arsenal do from set pieces. Nicolas Jurrien has done a fantastic job, of course, and it's always about, at this level, at this point, when you're reaching a stage where you've got an amount of points that can reach heights of 90 plus and getting close to 100 points, the marginal gains that you have to try and achieve, of course, are going to want to extract every ounce of potential from every situation. And that's why Arsenal have invested in somebody like Nicolas Jurrien, so they can extract more. Now, Arteta spoke in his post-match press conference just about exploiting the weaknesses of other opposition sides. And we know that teams in this Premier League are weak from set pieces, and Arsenal are doing everything in their power to take advantage of that. He said, we need that. I think we want to be very dangerous and very effective from every angle of every phase of play. We worked on all of that. Today, we couldn't score from open play like we did against West Ham and Sporting. So the team really has belief from that angle that we have the mentality to threaten the opponent and to try and score. Today was 2 set pieces. We constantly have threatening corners. He said, continue by saying, we play with inverted wingers, so they develop a lot as well of times inside. There's not a lot of space inside, so when they leave, there's a lot of space for the fullback and for the 6 and for the 9, and now you can go outside. So we need to look at every angle, what the opponents do, where they can be weak, and where we can exploit the weakness of the opposition. It does feel like that kind of the Arsenal fans were every corner, the noise, and this is something that needs to happen in every single game. The noise from a corner. It's almost like, you know, those games when you go to like watch a lower league bit of football and there's a goalkeeper taking a goal kick and you get the that classic kind of English football chant that goes on at goal kicks. This needs to happen at every Arsenal home game from a corner. The Arsenal crowd needs to be making that noise at every single corner because it unsettles the opponent. It creates that anticipation, that nervousness, and the apprehension in opponents. The crowd has a part to play in these set pieces, and the crowd needs to recognize that. The crowd was off in the first half. I thought it was the energy wasn't there. The pre-match lights and the fire and all that was all, very impressive, but the crowd lacked a little bit of energy in the first half and only felt like it turned up in the second. And it frustrates me at times because, we shouldn't be. It's that whole thing about entitlement and expectation, and it gets on my nerves. We need to be on it from the first minute. I think yesterday was probably the closest I've been to breaking out of that kind of press box bubble. I was sitting kind of next to the stairs, and I don't know. I feel like I crossed over a little bit into it's a slight edge of fandom from sitting there, just because of the frustrations of the first half and the annoyance, I suppose, at it being a little bit damp in the ground. So the Peter, who does the stadium announcements as well, and he does a fantastic job. There's obviously been an emphasis not just on Peter's work, but of course on the work that's done with the inside stadium announcer as well, on trying to G the crowd up. And you got to stick with it. You've got to. It's not getting a response as immediate as it should, but we've got to keep it going. And Peter's doing a great job in what he's doing and trying to do that. And yes, I know some people say it's cringe and some people don't like it necessarily, but what people need to understand is that it's being done not for show. It's not being done for the sake of it. It's not being done for social media. It's being done because we want every single little marginal gain that we think we can get. And if we think we can do that by getting the crowd up to try and shout the players' names in the lineup, or shout the players' names when they score, or make noise from corners. When Newcastle scored their equaliser, and I don't know if there's rules against this, and there may be rules against it that I'm unaware of, be something I need to ask a question about. But can you imagine if the Newcastle full-time score had been announced in the stadium, what that would have done to the crowd if it just came up saying there was a break in play, there was a player off. I think at one point Xerxes was down, someone was down off the field, and it would have been great in that moment if the kind of an announcement went full time at Newcastle, Newcastle 3, Liverpool 3. Can you imagine the noise that would have created in the ground? I don't know if there's rules against that. There might be, and maybe I'm unaware of that. But I thought that would have been great to see. Anyway, moving forwards, I want to talk about some individuals. Jakub Kiwior. Really, really well done, Jakub Kiwior. Is there a player that's more kind of overlooked in this team at the moment? I'm not sure. I think there's a good chance that maybe Jakub Kiwior is the most ostracized player in the team. So quiet, so unassuming, very quickly. And I do this. I'm guilty of this. I'm really guilty of this, is that I sometimes worry it too much. I saw the lineup and I had a real amount of apprehension about it. I had real confidence going into this game with Gabriel and potentially Calafiori being back. And of course, we hadn't heard anything about either of them prior to the lineups being released. And I had real hope that they were going to be back. And when they weren't, I'll be honest with you, the confidence I had really did start to drain. And that's my own naivety. That's my own lack of belief in some of the players, and that's on me. But Kiwior and Zinchenko as well, both of them really showed why I shouldn't have that pessimism. And I'm not usually a pessimistic person, but I couldn't help it because of the caliber of the game, the magnitude of the match. But both Calafiori and Gabriel not being there did concern me slightly. And Kiwior stepped up. I love this photo, by the way, as Amesy points out in the chat. But I love this picture. I just love the kind of the grabbing of Kiwior and just saying like, "Fair play, mate. Like, well done, well done." And I just think that, in these moments, you need to step up. We have no White. We had no Tomiyasu, no Gabriel, no Calafiori. Some players, of course, as we know, have been playing a lot of matches, a lot of matches. And we're having to deal with those. Partey missed the weekend. Marino's only just come back as well. Erdegaard's only just come back from injury. Every time he goes down, I get a little bit concerned. So, yeah, really, really good. There was a pass from Kiwior in the first half to Martinelli that was great. There was a pass in the second half from Kiwior to Trossard that was excellent. And his passing has been something that's always been a little bit of a question mark. But yesterday, confident, accurate, pointed, purposeful. Really, really, really well. No one's talking about this debate anymore, is there? No one's talking about the goalkeeper debate. We used to have this chat loads last season. This chat came up week after week after week. And yes, there was because in part, Raya wasn't being perfect because he was still adapting to being Arsenal's first choice keeper and the nerves maybe and adapting to the new style and the expectations of Arsenal from a keeper. No one talks about this debate anymore. This debate is done. This debate is over. At the moment, David Raya is probably the best goalkeeper in the league. At the moment, Ederson, of course, has fallen off a bit, and Stefan Ortega's had to jump in. Kelleher made a huge mistake for Liverpool that cost them 2 points. I think it's fair to say that David Raya is probably the best goalkeeper in the league right now. Not just for what he does as a goalkeeper from like a save standpoint, and he pulled off a fantastic save from De Ligt's header. He was confident in stopping Antony's shot from close range. And it's his distribution that is really impressive. He's playing some passes that Ramsdale used to be really praised for. Some of these low-driven, kind of straight kind of passes through the middle of the park into an Erdegaard or into a Rice. He's doing some of those passes now, as well as kind of the chip passes through. There was one out to Timber in the second half that again was it in the second half? No, it was in the first half. One pass out to Timber in the first half that was really, really good. And I think from a ball playing standpoint, we probably have the best distributor in terms of form, not in terms of like raw quality, because Ederson, of course, we'd know is up there and Alisson as well. But in terms of right now, who's producing the best performances in goal, David Raya deserves all the flowers, and he's doing fantastic. And I think it's worthy of a discussion and worthy of a comment in today's show, and that's why I wanted to bring that up. And it was again, another. We've talked and we've lauded Thomas Partey for being probably our best midfielder this season, but yesterday Declan Rice again against Manchester United stepped up, one player of the match. I think there are a number of players, of course, who could have won that award, but Declan Rice's performance was really strong, very present, very progressive, defensively very good. Battling back, winning his duels. It was maybe an understated display. I didn't see many people talking about Declan Rice's performance. But I really noticed it watching it in the ground. Maybe that was the difference. Maybe it was watching kind of his performance in the ground that was the difference. I'm not sure. But I really, when I saw the tweet that he got player of the match, I was like, oh, I'm really glad that he got that, because I don't think many people have talked about how good Declan Rice was yesterday. There's been a few moments where I'm like, yeah, Partey's definitely edged it this season. But in yesterday's game, I actually thought in yesterday's game, Partey was slightly off. There were some moments where Partey had a few. It was kind of a little bit too relaxed on the ball, and it's not just about the one time where he obviously made a mistake which allowed Man United to counter. A few times he was just a bit off in terms of the passing and in terms of the presence. And whenever he was, Rice stepped up, and Rice filled those gaps, and Rice swept up kind of any loose positions, and then he would drive the ball forwards. He doesn't have the line-breaking passes of Partey. I think we know that. But what he does have is that ability to take players on from midfield and to burst forwards and to kind of grow territory. These are parts of football that aren't really talked about. They aren't really spoken about enough. Is kind of the territory side of the game and how players can take the ball from one phase of play to another to relieve pressure, but also to elevate pressure on your opponent. And Declan Rice does that really, really well. And I'm really glad that he got that award because he absolutely deserved it. But it meant that Arsenal, of course, closed the gap at the top of the table to Liverpool, or should I say Liverpool, because goodness gracious me, how often are they going to get away with things? Van Dijk, again, should be sent off, should have been given a penalty to Newcastle. I don't know if anyone saw this. There's only a couple of videos I've seen going around about this, but it's so blatant. Anthony Gordon gets flattened by Van Dijk off the ball, inside the box. It's I don't know what you could say about that moment. Absolutely ludicrous how that isn't, for some reason, not punished. At least a penalty. But you could argue with it being such an off-the-ball incident that it could be a red card offence as well. And it's just completely ignored by the officials. Joe Gomez, I think it is, that takes down Isak in the box. Nothing given. Blatant penalty. Somehow isn't given. Really don't understand that whatsoever. And then, of course, right at the end of the game, and I tweeted about this from my personal account, it's in the 90th, it's just crossed over the 95th minute. There's obviously been moments where Newcastle scored in the 90th minute. So celebrations have carried on and delayed into that stoppage time. And then obviously there's been a couple of stoppages in injury time. Nick Pope releases the ball. Newcastle are countering. And for some reason, I'm not sure who it was. It wasn't Kavanagh, I don't think. I think it might have been Madley. I think it was Madley who was the referee. I couldn't believe that the referee blew his whistle as the ball was being thrown and Newcastle were on the attack. I thought that was horrendous. And yeah, Liverpool again getting the rub of the green. Surprise, surprise. But it didn't matter because Newcastle, as Eddie Howe said, attacked. And Isak's got, goodness gracious me, what a strike. You know, we can talk about, his work in small spaces, his finishing, but he can score a fantastic goal when you need it. And we've talked about Arsenal lacking players that can pop up with a strike out of nowhere, that, marginal gains and moments of brilliance. He's got that in him. Some of his finishes are delightful. Some of his goals have been absolutely magnetic. Like they draw you in his performance. And even though they didn't lose Liverpool, this little hiccup, this late goal, I really hope rocks the boat. I really hope it gives them that little seed of doubt that both Arsenal and Chelsea, and I know that I was at Enzo Maresca's press conference on Tuesday, and even though he didn't want to kind of commit to Chelsea being the title race, and of course you wouldn't, if you were Chelsea manager right now, you wouldn't want to commit. You want to put that pressure on. But you can't ignore that Chelsea are there. I mean, it was funny that the fact that we managed to win a game, and yet I looked at the table and suddenly we've gone down a place because of goal difference. But we've got this great opportunity with the games we've got coming up. A great chance to take advantage of these games. Just having a quick look at Liverpool and Chelsea's fixtures that are coming up in the league. For them, they've got the Merseyside derby, Everton just smashing Wolves yesterday. We'll do a Premier League roundup in proper tomorrow morning. But they absolutely smashed Wolves, and I think Gary O'Neill could be in a bit of trouble. So Everton at home against Liverpool this weekend. That'll be an exciting game. Merseyside derby Saturday at 12:30, early kickoff after, of course, Liverpool have just played, so they won't be happy about that. They've got Fulham at home. Fulham, of course, decent side. They then go to Tottenham, and we're hoping on our rivals to do us a favour in the title race again. Goodness me. And then they've got a few easy games, if we're being honest. They've got Leicester at home, West Ham away, Man United at home, Nottingham Forest away, Brentford away, Ipswich at home, Bournemouth away, Wolves at home, then Man City away on February 22nd, then Newcastle at home, Southampton, Aston Villa, Everton in that kind of February-March period. So, and then, of course, they play Arsenal in the third game from the end of the season. I really hope the title race is still on at that point, or at least maybe we're out of sight. Who knows? But what an amazing opportunity there, Anfield, in May. It would be, that's it was just absolutely glorious in the end, just to see Liverpool drop points and to see ultimately where we are as well as a club and where things are for us. So that brings us to the end of today's first part. So we're going to go to part 2 and your questions in part 2, and the advent calendar, of course, as well. Let's do it right after this. Not only does the advent calendar of chocolate continue, but you may notice that we're continuing our protest for us to be allowed to wear what we wish when we stream this morning, sporting. And I did think it was appropriate today, to be fair, not only because we have the blue background for our Raw Reaction show, but on the back of this Real Oviedo shirt is a certain Mr. Santi Cazorla who could deliver a set piece or two in his time at Arsenal. So I thought it was appropriate today to adorn the Real Oviedo shirt. I tell you what, though, I was looking through the box and it made me think I'm a little concerned about if we've got enough shirts. Hopefully we do, but we may end up breaking into the Arsenal left field picks before, of course, the advent is over. Speaking of which, today is what, the 5th of December. Let's go. Number five. I should probably preview these. Here we go. Right in the middle. And it's a Dairy Milk Caramel. Beautiful morning. What a set piece. Lovely. Right. Let's go into the chat box, tackle some of your questions and comments, and get some of your thoughts on today's show. Lloyd says they call us Stoke 2.0, yet the status matrix of that game favours us. Shorts, targets, 6-2 to corners, 13-0 in terms of kind of corners as well. Shots on target, 6-2, corners 13-0. Raya made one save the whole game. They didn't do anything to win the game, yet they call us names. Of course, that's all they've got. Lloyd. That's all they have. They have nothing else but to try and take the mick and cry and moan. Terry says, is Calafiori injured? It seems like it's just kind of a case of managing his situation, not rushing him back. Arteta did say that he was he wasn't too much of an issue after the West Ham game, but clearly too much of an issue to see him rush back today. Maybe they'll be back for the game against Fulham. He was asked in the post-match press conference about that. Just a quick reaction to that. He says, Gabby was a big risk to play because he felt something against West Ham. Sunday is going to be a possibility with Ricardo as well. Let's see how he reacts. So hopefully, fingers crossed, both of them are fit to play. Play that one. Nam says, Tom, what is your take on this insipid, good word, discussion about Arsenal scoring from set pieces? It's becoming irritating. Don't let it become irritating. Do not let this irritate you. If you're sitting there and you're getting annoyed about us getting a stick for scoring loads of goals from set pieces, then take that hat off, put it to one side, and sit back, relax, and laugh and enjoy it. Because if you're worried about what people think about us and how we're winning games, you're never going to enjoy it, are you? If the fact that we're winning and what people are saying about us winning is annoying you, you're never going to get over it. So take that hat off, take a step back, and enjoy this hilarity. Enjoy the schadenfreude of it all. Enjoy the fact that we are getting under everybody's skin, because you know what happens when you get under people. You know why it's happening. It's because you're good. You get under people's skin when you're good, and when they have no reply, and when they have no real argument, and their composure starts to crack, and you start to find those ways to take advantage and exploit them. And it builds the tension, it builds the irritation, it builds the apprehension in opponents, so that when we've got set pieces, free kicks, corners, penalties, whatever, and the noise inside the stadium starts to build and grow, and it really does plant that seed of doubt into the mind of any defender, because every time Arsenal get a corner, every time Arsenal get a free kick in and around the box, you can be sure that those opposition players are petrified, that they are, in every essence of the word, fearful of what Arsenal can produce, of Saliba, of Gabriel, of Calafiori, of Havertz, of Marino, of what Rice can produce, of what Saka can produce in terms of crosses. You know, we are so threatening. And if you build up this narrative and you build up this rhetoric surrounding how potent you are, it can only exponentially grow your success from them. And it's very, very good indeed. Chunho says, Tom, it's frustrating to always see so many decisions go for Liverpool, but so many decisions went against us all the time. Even when Saliba scores with his backside, they had to check if his arse was offside. The ball actually goes backwards, so I don't think he can be offside. But yeah, it was just it's one of those, isn't it? Ashley says, pros and cons for you. Saliba, Kiwior, Rice, Jurrien Timber, excellent. Zinni, very good. Our front four press was poor against Maguire, De Ligt, Ugarte. Ødegaard run for days, Ashley. Ødegaard ran for days. I recommend a rewatch because they passed it around the back a lot. Our press was forcing their long ball constantly. Onana kept going long. Maguire kept going long. De Ligt, I thought, was their best player, but he had to keep going long. I'd recommend a rewatch, Ashley. Our press was very good. Our press is what got them into turning over the possession so often because they kept kicking the ball on. As Amesy says, the front press was really good. Grant says, so did Kai. Pressed really, really well. So I'm not sure I agree with you about the press point. We weren't as potent in terms of the attacking nature like Havertz in terms of like attacking threat. He had that one chance with his shot at Onana. In terms of those kind of clear-cut opportunities for those front players, yes, there wasn't as many in this game. But I think it's unfair to criticise the press. I thought the press forced Manchester United into turning over possession time after time after time. And we really benefited from that in wrestling back control of the ball. So I don't agree about the press. I don't agree about the Ødegaard point. But I think it's fair to point out there was a little bit of bluntness when it came to kind of the open play attacking. But ultimately, in the end, it didn't need to matter. JR says, I think it's just fantastic that we have an avenue to use set pieces, that we're at such an elite level with them. Prior to that, if we couldn't break a low block like a United 5 at the back, we were stuck. You know, and people talk about reliance on set pieces, forgetting the fact that in these 15 goals in these last 4 games, Arsenal scored some really good goals from open play. You know, Trossard's goal against West Ham was absolutely brilliant. Martinelli's goal against Sporting was absolutely fantastic. We have produced some really, really good goals. The ball over the top for Havertz to score that one-on-one, really, really good. So this idea that Arsenal aren't still potent and threatening from open play is mad. And, you know, we are playing this style because it generates a higher frequency of so set piece chances for us to try and take advantage of. Yared says, I don't believe that Z helps our club. He should go. I mean, Yared, I really question your motives here, mate. He's just had a fantastic performance, Zinchenko. Is there a wider discussion to be had about Zinchenko's future? Sure. But if it's your mindset that you watch that game, watch a player step into the team that's not started many games at all, that we've needed him to come into this side, we've got players that are out injured, he has to play. And your instinct, not only to leave a comment, and while I'm grateful for you leaving a super chat, I always do find it odd when people leave super chats. And frankly, I don't care if it costs us or the channel super chats in the future. I'd rather people were genuine about it. It's odd that this kind of rhetoric on YouTube is that people put super chats in that need to be read because they want to make sure that they are saying a negative comment. I find it really odd. It's a discretion of mine whether I read them out or not. It's just odd to me. You'd watch that performance from Zinchenko and your mind goes to, yeah, Zinchenko needs to leave. I don't mind having a wider discussion about that in the future, but today's not the day. I saw people like talk about Martinelli's performance. You know, we can have a wider discussion about Martinelli as well. You know, there was some, he was, again, one of those front four that we talked about not looking too great in terms of the, in terms of kind of how threatening we was. But if your first thought is to leave a comment after a 2-0 win over Man United, as a criticism of Martinelli, I really do kind of question motives here and mindsets. Ashley has qualified his point and said press was excellent in the second half. It was really good in the first half as well, Ashley. It was really good in the first half. The press was really good. Our attacking threat wasn't as strong, anywhere near as strong as it was in the second half. But the press was really good in the first half. Odegaard was running, Sakai was running. We were forcing United into making mistakes at the back. They were forced to go long time after time. It was good. It was good. I don't know where this idea of the press not being good yesterday throughout the game has come from. Maguire de Ligt is not considered good on the ball, according to United fans. So as a little disappointed to not win the ball back. We did. I really don't get this point, Ashley. Again, I said I recommend a rewatch. I do. Yasin says, just saw a replay of the Isak goal. Just wow, if he could only stay fit. Chunho says, to be fair, Amorim tactics yesterday had similar signs to when Arteta started at our club. If the right resources and support, Man United could be in trouble and could trouble us in the future. We've been saying that about Man United for a long, long time. We've been saying that about United for a long, long time. When Mourinho came in, when Ten Hag came in, we've been saying that United will trouble us for years. And I think Ruben Amorim's a really good coach. And I think that he will improve them. But it's not just about the coach. It has to be about the recruitment, the squad building and, momentum. And they've always threatened to deceive. And that's the reality. That's the reality of things. Omar says, you're so reactive. Omar, wasn't it you that was tweeting me throughout the game yesterday about Martinelli's performance? I'd argue that's quite reactive, to be fair. Grant says, do you think the added quality of Rice carrying the ball 50 yards, turning defence into attack gives us a different threat? It's a different type. It's about territory. It's about kind of relieving pressure at the back, but also, elevating the pressure on your opponent in the final thirds. And that's what Rice does. He transitions the ball very well in possession rather than through like a line-breaking pass. So I think that's probably the key one there. Cardi says, have you noticed more fans being influenced by fan channels' banter or opinion? Oh, without question. This is, without a doubt, the biggest influence of young supporters in particular today. Younger supporters, and I say this with love and respect, younger supporters today, and I was one, so I know how it is. Turned 30 now, so I don't feel like I can put myself in the same category as our teenage and 20-year-old fans. But younger fans in particular on social media are so much more influenceable because of what rival fan channels say and do and talk about us. It's always about like what the hyperbole of what's being said. I find expressions very entertaining. On an entertainment value only, his views on Arsenal set pieces, I thought the other day, were purely manifested from nothing other than, well, it wasn't genuine. I didn't sense anything genuine. I felt like it was a really forced opinion about Arsenal set pieces. And while I find him very entertaining, I think he's brilliant at what he does. Again, it's that kind of, it's the characters like that I think that obviously rile up particularly young supporters and create kind of this overwhelming sense of siege mentality at times, and just like this tit for tat between different kind of clubs, And some of it, as I said, is entertaining. I found some of the fan cams really entertaining. But what it does do is it does exaggerate the reality, exaggerates opinions. And because, of course, the most exaggerative and the most hyperbole gets you the most views, it gets you the most attention, it keeps you getting paid for certain gigs. It's just the reality of media almost in 2024, that people know if they can say the most controversial things on a most consistent basis, it's going to draw the most attention, it's going to rile up the most views. Views today aren't coming from people agreeing with what's being said. There'll be a proportion of that. And I don't think that's the case here. I think thankfully we kind of live in a little bit of an outside of that bubble, and it's quite nice. We have a fantastic community of people here, and it's very kind of, what's the word? No, I can't think of what the word is. It's building, it's collaborative, it's uplifting. But I think we live kind of outside of this bubble, is that inside the bubble is kind of like, say the craziest things you can, and the majority of your views will come from rival supporters laughing at you or trying to claim they're laughing with you, or just kind of getting riled up by what's said. So they keep coming back. So they're like, oh, I wonder what this guy has said about us. I wonder what she's turned around and shouted about us this week. You know, that's what keeps people coming back. It's, oh, we've lost. I wonder what they've said. Or we've won. They'll be fuming. I'll go and see what they've said. So the views in 2024, on the most part, when it's really, really kind of the bigger views, it's not coming from a place of, oh, I really enjoy, what they say, and I agree with a lot of what they say. I'm going to go listen to what they say. That's not what it's about. There are places like that. I feel privileged enough to say that I think that we are like that. I think you can go and listen to the Arsenal Vision podcast, and you can go and listen to the Arscast, and their places like that. And you can go and listen to Harry's channel, and you can get that as well. And I know when I start naming people, if I haven't said somebody's name, it's not. It's not because I don't think they're also in that group. It's just because there are too many to name. It's just the reality of social media, Cardi, to be honest. I was on a gal's channel the other day, and there was this it got not heated, it got emotional about the Arne Slot debate, and about this idea that if Liverpool win the league, it looks really bad on Arteta. And I said to him, I was like, I think Igal was being too influenced by getting banter or stick from rival supporters, because, of course, I know he goes on streams with fans of other clubs. And I think that has an impact, because there's such a fear of getting that banter. There's such a fear of being laughed at. Now, I've really learned to detach myself. When I'm not doing this, when I'm not working, when I'm not watching games, I'm doing something else. I'm not scrolling through social media looking at what other fans are saying. I'm not listening to rival podcasts. I'm not listening to hyperbolic content creators. Like, I'll go and do something else. But I know that that's not everybody. I know that people do get sucked into the algorithm. And I know, obviously, the algorithm of social media today, without question, feeds you this kind of mental content that just makes your anger higher about loads of topics, not just football. We won't go into politics, because I know what people feel about that. But of course, it feeds you this kind of, you've watched that video of somebody bashing Arsenal, it's irritated you, and you've kept watching it. So the algorithm recognizes that you've stayed on that video longer. So it will keep feeding you content like that. And that's going to make you angrier and angrier. And it's going to keep making you come back to the point where you have to take hold of it and say, no, this needs to stop. I'm going to make an effort to watch things that aren't going to make me angry. I'm going to make an effort to watch things that aren't going to create this reactive nature from me. And that's the reality of, I think, why people get wound up so much on social media. Vanity says, I do enjoy watching Goldbridge best bits, and so do I. Like, if I do have usually it's when I'm watching the games. If I'm watching as a fan, that's when I'll be scrolling through my feeds, and I'm sitting at home and I've got the rare opportunity to watch a game without working. It'll be that pops up. Or when I'm looking for the discourse or some of the slides for the show in the mornings, again, that's when it'll come up. And I'll be lying if I said I haven't found some of those monologues, some of those fan cams incredibly entertaining, because they can be, but they're only entertaining. Like, they don't inform my opinion. They don't change how I think about something. I don't listen to those people and think, oh, that's a really good point. I think, oh, that's really funny. But I assume that's where it comes from, because I'm assuming that's the intention. It must be the intention, because why would anyone else why would anyone else do that if that's not what the intention was to be entertaining? So that's how I absorb it, because surely that's what the intention is. It's to be an entertainer. It's to be entertaining. So that's how it should be absorbed, right? That's how we should appreciate it, is it's just for entertainment. It's just to create viral clips. That's what it's about. It's not for me. And they never will be. YouTube user says, call us Pulis FC or Stokey Gunners or whatever. We really don't care. We have a weapon that every team now dreads, and the teams have no clue how to defend against the inevitable, and I'm loving it. Raditya says, the banter today is no different than what it was in the past. Fans are trying to get a reaction. Oh, I think it is different. Because the banter in the past was like, I'd watch a game and I'd go to the pub with my mates and have a chat, and there might be a little bit of stick here and there, but it's not like it is today. the banter you get between each other isn't like it is today. When you had a conversation with your mates, and to be fair, when you have a genuine chat with your friends that you go and see in person, not people that you banter with online or you play Fortnite with, like or play pro clubs with. I'm talking about the people that like you genuinely go and see and like have proper friendships with, and they support other teams. Like, if I'm having a little banter with a Spurs mate of mine, it's not the same. It's just not. Like it's so dialed up to 11 on social media and on podcasts. It's just dialed up to a silly level. The questioning follows that trend. And I watched the reaction to the overlap yesterday, and Gary Neville is somebody who, when he first came onto the punditry scene, I couldn't have respected more. I know that won't be a popular opinion amongst a lot of Arsenal fans, but when Gary Neville first came onto the scene at Sky, I genuinely carried on watching after games. I genuinely carried on watching into the post-match analysis because I enjoyed the discourse. I enjoyed his insights. I enjoyed what he did, and he built up a reputation, so much so that, and we can laugh about the Valencia job, but he was appreciated so much for his views as a pundit, and of course for the work that he did for the England national team to a degree as well. But he was appreciated for what he was saying and for his view on the game so much. It earned him a job. It earned him a managerial job. And I watched yesterday the overlap, which has produced some really entertaining bits of content. Again, it's not analytically engrossing. It's an attempt to turn what previously I had so much respect for in terms of what I used to watch and enjoy, the discourse after games and the breakdowns, the analysis of matches. And Gary Neville's reaction to Liverpool's consolation at the end, it just came across so YouTubery. And I say that as someone sitting here talking to you on YouTube, but I mean it in the sense, I don't think I'm not going to teach you how to suck eggs. You know exactly what I mean. It's not like that anymore. And yes, there's some really entertaining stuff on different platforms, and some of it really does make me laugh. But I do miss I do miss that discourse, that genuine analytical look at football on the platforms in that way, because it just seems like it's about making viral clips so much more these days, or being biased in commentary, or and I think football media in that sense, particularly in broadcast, has lost a little bit of its shine, because there's a real desperation. I think if you look at the kickoff, for instance, and I'm no advocate of True Geordie, don't get me wrong, but I'm just talking about the format of and the amount of viewers the kickoff would get. That showed you kind of the trend of how it was moving. The trend was moving from people watching, or listening to the commentary, to instead watching the game, but having a medium like that in the background. And the broadcast centers have had to kind of respond to that. And so now it's about bantering. Now it's about Jamie being a Liverpool fan and Gary being a Man United fan, and that really coming through in any conversations about those clubs in even serious ways. So, yeah, I miss a lot of what football punditry and analysis used to be. I don't know, I turned 30 and I'm sounding like an old man shouting at clouds type thing. But I genuinely do miss it. I do miss the sensible discourse, and that's why I listen to Clive on the Vision and Elliot, and that's why I do listen to James and Andrew on the Ask Us, or when Phil Costa's on, or Lewis Ambrose, and listening to what they've got to say, or when Tim is talking as well, or Paul. It's really good stuff. It's really good stuff. And that's why they're so successful in terms of what their podcast are, because it's good. It's good, genuine football chat. It's not just trying to create drama. It's not just trying to create viral clips. And you know what's really good about I feel I'm blowing smoke up people's asses now. But Elliot started to produce kind of these shorts. I mean, I'm sure he's got an editor behind the scenes doing it as well. But of some of the kind of the little snippets from the Vision podcast in particular, and that's the type of short content I wish took off. There was a bit where Clive was talking about how we've been so let down by, the teams that faced Man City last season, how it was a disgrace that Aston Villa would rotate players against City and then go full strength against us. And yeah, in the comments, you had your classic Twitter trolls. Of course you did, because you can't escape that. But yeah, I can't help but, always get. And that's why I love the fact that Clive goes on the TalkSport show on Inside Arsenal. It was a pleasure to join him on that show. I think it's great that there's an effort that's made to get people like Clive onto those platforms. And so you have to say kudos to those platforms when they give that, that platform to people like Clive. Anyway, before Clive inevitably leaves a message with a blushing face emoji in the chat box, we will move swiftly on to some more comments. Michael says, how do you stop our corners? Next season, all, or rather most of the teams will be setting up like us. But can they do that, though, Michael, is the question. Is it just a simple case? Can every team do what we're doing? Is what Arsenal's doing so copyable that everybody else can just do it? That's the question that we have to ask ourselves. Is what we're doing so copyable that eventually everyone will do it? Because surely, and if you've watched Arsenal's set pieces over the last 2 years, they're not the same. If you watch a set piece from Arsenal 2 years ago compared to a set piece from yesterday's game, they won't be the same. The movement's not the same. The placement of the ball, the cross is not the same. The runs the players are making are not the same. The positions outside where the players are, the choice of players is not the same in certain positions. Arsenal's corner routines constantly evolve and change and keep the opponent guessing. And that's why they continue to be so threatening. Because as soon as it looks like somebody's worked out what we're doing, or maybe we have a game where our set pieces aren't as dangerous, back to the drawing board. Work on something else. Switch it up. Change it up. Have 3 or 4 different routines in the game. There's probably more than that. I'm probably doing a disservice to Yerva's planning. But have different options, different routines, and that is always the way forwards. You have to keep evolving. And that's why, when I had this discussion the other day with somebody, when someone said, Arsenal are always 1 or 2 players away from being there. And I'm like, yes, they are. But 2 or 3 seasons ago and longer, it used to be 5 or 6 players. We used to be 5 or 6 players away from being there. And then I think I've come to a bit of a realization that I actually think that unless, and even maybe when you win a title or you win the league, I still don't think you're always going to be there. Because the reality is that football is always changing. The teams around you are always signing more players. Other clubs are always spending more money, or changing their managers, or getting better, or players are getting older and developing, or getting into their prime, or being replaced. So surely the idea that you could get there and that you won't be 1 or 2 players away is never going to happen, is it? You're never going to be there. So if you're 1 or 2 players away, and if the perception is that we're 1 or 2 players away, then I'm kind of fine with that, because I think you're always going to be 1 or 2 players away. I think I've come to the realization that's the reality. But before, I think even saying we were 5 or 6 away is maybe even optimistic. When Arteta took over, we were 15, 16 away, weren't we? We've realised is that we've overhauled the squad. We've built the team around players like Saliba and Saka, and gone, and Martinelli as well, of course, and gone forward from there. But I think this idea that being, we're always 1 or 2 players away, I don't think we're ever going to escape that. And I don't think, you look at Manchester City this season, and in the last few seasons, they've never had a competent backup or a competitive option to Rodri. And this season, it's cost them. So they've always been 1 player away from being that team. They sold Julian Alvarez in the summer. Did they bring in a forward to replace him in the centre forward position to be back up to Haaland? No, they didn't. They signed Savinho and they brought in Gundogan, but they still look short. Liverpool as well. Liverpool are short in midfield also. They're still 1 or 2 players away, and yet they're sitting there happy and pretty at 7 points ahead of the table. So I think that this idea that there's a complaint that we're always 1 or 2 players away. I think you're always 1 or 2 players away. But the thing is, Arsenal used to be 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 or 15 or 16 players away. And actually now, the progression of the squad, the work that Edu did and Arteta did, and Richard Garlick, of course, does now, and Jason Ato, and those behind the scenes, and the owners, the investment, it's got us to where we are. It's got us to where we are, and that's a really positive thing. And I love the fact that we're here. And as I keep saying, I've never enjoyed watching Arsenal more than I have these last few seasons in my life. I was young when we had the Invincibles, and I know that won't be the same, what I've just said there about enjoying Arsenal more now than ever before, because people older than me will have enjoyed some really, really good times that I've, from perspective. I mean, when the Invincibles won the league, I was 10. I couldn't enjoy it the same way I can enjoy football as an adult. So I just haven't enjoyed football as much and watching Arsenal as much as I have these last 2-3 years. It's been great, and I love it, and I don't want it to stop. And I continue to enjoy us moving forwards, and we keep winding people up, and we keep beating teams, and we keep going unbeaten against big sides, and it's great. And I've sat and endured and worked through some really dour times as an Arsenal fan. Like, for some of the younger listeners, the 2010s, if you weren't footballingly conscious in the same way you are now, those 2010, they were tough, man. Yes, we picked up some FA Cups, and trust me, that I can't, like, when people talk about and talk down about the FA Cup, when I was sitting in my first year of university in 2013-14, watching the FA Cup final between Arsenal and Hull City, and when Aaron Ramsey scored that goal to win that cup and end a 9-year trophy drought for us, I cannot tell you the feeling of just winning what some people would describe today, sadly, as just the FA Cup. Like, the 20 are so tough. It's just, if you are watching Arsenal in the last 2 and 3 years and you're still not satisfied, I don't think, I mean, if it takes a title, if it takes the Premier League title for you to be satisfied in supporting your team, I just can't help but think that's an incredibly privileged way to be a football fan. An incredibly privileged way to be a football fan, and an arrogant way to be a football fan. I don't mind saying that. So yeah, I just enjoy this. Enjoy this while we've got it, because it might be that one day again we are scrapping for top 4. I sincerely hope that we don't ever go back there again, but genuinely, Barris is 1979 against Man United. Wow, and that's what I mean. Some of our older fans are going to have some of these experiences. 1989 against Liverpool was not something I got to experience as a fan in the time. It's something that I've been able to go back and enjoy watching over and over. And the 89 documentary that a friend of the show, Amy Lawrence, has produced with some other fantastic people. You're able to go back and really enjoy those moments. But if it's going to take, I always use this example of my other half being a Charlton fan. The idea of a title being what it takes. Like, if I speak to my father-in-law, for instance, about the idea that some Arsenal fans, they're not happy, and they're never going to be happy until Arsenal win a title. Like, when I say those words, they're like, "Are you nuts?" What a hugely privileged way to be a football fan. The only way that you'll ever be satisfied is if your team wins the title. In people's lifetimes of being football fans, people will sometimes never, ever see their team win a league. In a lifetime, some people will never see their team win a league title. Millions of football fans around the world will never see their team win a league title, not even lift a trophy in some cases. So to be in a position where you are as an Arsenal fan, to enjoy a side that have won, that continue to compete, that continue to progress and get better, it's genuine. That's the privilege. That's the actual privilege, is enjoying that. Yes, Franklin says, imagine being a Spurs fan. And I say that in obviously rival-based jest, but genuinely, imagine that. Paul says, great show as usual, Tom. As a 55-year plus supporter of Arsenal, times come and go over the years. These last 3 seasons have been another uplift. Come on, you Gooners. Champions League must be won, hopefully. that's something that we will achieve. What a moment it would be if Arsenal could indeed do it. Chino says, Tom, do you think Liverpool's run this season to be similar to ours in 22-23 at the start of the season? And once we start to have one or two poor results, it drops off? I hope so. I was listening to someone actually compare this season to that the other day, so maybe that's the case. Maybe that will happen. Hussein says, winning a title can only be enjoyed at the end of the season anyway. Why not enjoy the ride along the way as we're always competing? Dan says this is setting up the Arsenal game at Anfield as a blockbuster. I mean, it could be. It really, really could be. Emily says they were incredibly hard times, Tom, those 2010s. As someone old enough to remember, but they feel so long ago now. It's so good to be. I mean, ask a fan who was around to watch Arsenal during the 70s. And I'm not talking about the late 70s. I'm talking about the 70s, like the proper doggedness where Liam Brady was the only player really, with a smattering of others, that could get you off your feet and that made it worthwhile really watching Arsenal. The 70s were tough. Now, if you think that we've had tough times these last 2 years, you haven't got a clue. You don't have a clue how bad it can get being an Arsenal fan. You have no idea. Absolutely no idea whatsoever. Aaron says, Timber was too good. I haven't really talked about Timber besides his goal. He was absolutely excellent. Absolutely excellent. Really exciting player. Really joyous. The way he takes players on and beats them. Really, really good. Really, really good. John Radford. Yes, Barry. Hussein says, Liverpool just always have goals in them. That's the worrying bit. Unless they get big injuries, they'll be very, very difficult. Of course they will. And they've always had this fortune about them. It gets on my nerves. They've always got these things going their way. And I wish they didn't, but that's the reality as is. Raditya says, ask a fan who knew Arsenal just started supporting them in 2002-03 and felt the Invincibles is going through to the late noughties and tens. Imagine if you thought that was going to happen. It is crazy. How about the day of Glenn Helder? Those were bad days, says John. And Barry says, Liam Brady. If you're a younger Arsenal fan, of which I would still say I relatively am, and you never got to see Liam Brady play on pitches that were like the South Downs, so bumpy and nothing like the football today. If Liam Brady and the players of generation that had that ability in the 70s were able to play football on the pitches that the footballers get to play today, it's scary to think about what they could have been capable of. Scary to think about what they could have done. So if you've never gone back and really watched Liam Brady as a footballer, and the footage, of course, is out there, it's not in HD, I'm afraid, but go and watch it. Give yourself an early Christmas present and go and watch it. Anyway, I've just looked at the clock and we've been going for over an hour somehow. But we've won and we beat Man United, so who cares? Thank you so much for listening, as always. I really appreciate your listenership and you being here and your questions. Please do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. It is Friday, which means there will be another press conference. They are coming thick and fast, and the games are as well. Arsenal playing, of course, this weekend. They've got Fulham away. We'll have a preview show for you. That preview show will be probably on Friday afternoon. I will need to double check, though. A lot of stuff. Busy schedule heading up to Christmas. But we'll have a preview show hopefully then. And then next week it's Monaco, and then it's Everton, and then it's Palace, and then it's Palace again, then it's Ipswich, and then it's Christmas. Well, it's Christmas before Ipswich, to be fair. So, yeah, it's coming thick and fast. Enjoy your Thursday, best day of the week, as I always try and tell you. Underrated day of the week, especially when you're not playing in the Europa League. But, yeah, enjoy yourselves. Stay safe. Stay well. Stay happy and respectful. Keep laughing at corners. Set piece again. And as always, up the Arsenal.